The smell of smoke reaches her before the screaming stops. Matilda is 31 years old, queen of the northern reaches, wife of King Oswulf, mother of 3 children who are somewhere in the chaos beyond these walls. She stands in the great hall of her palace, wearing a gown meant for a victory feast that will never happen. Through a shattered window, she watches her kingdom collapse into fire and blood. The battle was expected to last 3 days. It lasted 3 hours. Her husband's army, 3,000 men who had never lost a major engagement, broke in the first hour. Not because they were untrained, not because they were poorly armed, but because the men attacking them fought without fear. The Northmen did not hesitate. Matilda watched from the tower as cavalry charges vanished into shield walls. She watched formations collapse. She watched her husband, unmistakable in his golden armor, dragged from his horse like prey pulled down by wolves. She did not see everything they did to him. She saw enough. Now smoke fills the hall. The doors shudder under axe blows. The secret passage Oswulf had built for this exact moment collapsed with the east tower. The guards are dead. The servants fled hours ago. Matilda is alone, unarmed, wearing a crown that marks her as exactly what the men outside are looking for. The doors splinter. Faces appear through the smoke. Painted symbols. Fire-lit eyes that seem almost inhuman. The first man through the door is enormous, half a head taller than Oswulf's guards. His beard braided with silver rings. He stops when he sees her. His eyes do not linger on fear or beauty. They assess value. Behind him, more men enter. They do not touch her. They wait. The hierarchy is clear. This man decides. He speaks a word she does not know. Drottning, queen. He removes the crown from her head gently, almost ceremonially, and hands it away without looking. Then he studies her again, longer this time. Something changes behind his eyes. He speaks another word. The men around him fall silent. She is taken from the burning hall into a night lit by the flames of her kingdom's destruction. She sees women dragged from buildings, children separated, men executed or bound. Near the gate, her husband's body is displayed. She does not scream. She does not fight. She has already learned that resistance does not bring freedom. It only changes the shape of suffering. She is led toward the harbor, where ships with dragon prows wait in water that reflects fire like molten metal. She walks past everything she has ever known into a future she cannot imagine. And she will soon learn what Vikings really did to captured queens. Because what survives in popular memory is not what actually happened. The Vikings were not just explorers and traders. They were conquerors, and they built systems to process what conquest produced, including human beings. Captured royalty occupied a category unlike any other. To understand Matilda's fate, you must understand the world that claimed her. Viking society was governed by hierarchy and reputation. Wealth mattered, but status mattered more. And nothing elevated status like possessing something others could not. A captured queen was not labor. She was proof. Proof of victory. Proof of dominance. Proof that gods favored the man who held her. Royal captives were not interchangeable. They were irreplaceable symbols. And symbols had uses beyond work. The Norse believed the universe was ruled by fate. That outcomes were fixed. That hesitation was weakness. And that the gods demanded offerings proportional to what was asked of them. Animals were sufficient for small requests. Humans were required for great ones. And among humans, status determined value. A queen was the highest offering imaginable. This was not rumor. This was documented. The sagas describe it carefully, euphemistically, strategically. Archaeology confirms what later translators softened. Human sacrifice occurred, and high-status captives were central to it. When the man who claimed Matilda invoked Freya, he was not making poetry. He was declaring her sacred property, marked for ritual use. The journey north lasted 17 days. Below deck, Matilda counted the women around her. 31 in total. Most were commoners. 5 were noble. They were treated differently. The common women were handled as cargo. Used. Fed minimally. The The noble captives were preserved, not out of mercy, out of value. The man who claimed her visited daily, ensuring her health. "You queen," he told her. "You valuable." When she asked what would happen to her, he answered with a single word. Thing. The assembly. Her fate would be decided publicly. At the trading settlement, the captives were divided. Common women sold quickly. Noble women set aside. Matilda was taken to a holding compound. 3 days. That was all she had. When the thing convened, hundreds gathered. Chiefs, warriors, onlookers. Her value was debated openly. She could not understand the words. She could understand the attention. When her captor spoke the phrase again, the invocation to Freya, the assembly grew quiet. Religion and status intertwined. The decision was made. She was granted 3 months. Preparation. Then the ritual. She was taken to a remote island household. There she learned the truth. She was not being punished. She was being elevated. Freya's worship required living vessels, human participants of exceptional status. Queens carried the spiritual weight of sovereignty. She was trained, educated, conditioned. Her body was prepared. Her mind was reshaped. She learned trance rituals, fasting, chanting, techniques that altered perception, broke resistance, rewired fear. She did not believe in the gods, but belief was not required. Participation was. The training worked. Against her will, she became capable. Too capable. Her value increased. Her death was scheduled for the winter solstice. 6 weeks remained. Then an unexpected ally intervened. The household's mistress, once a captive herself, recognized Matilda's resilience. She offered an alternative.
Permanent service.
Living utility instead of ceremonial death. After weeks of negotiation, the decision changed. Matilda would live, not as a free woman, but as a dedicated religious servant. A Velva. She survived. Years passed. She became indispensable. Feared. Respected. She bore children. She advised leaders. She lived between worlds. She never escaped. She never returned home. She never learned what became of her first children. But she endured. Most captured queens did not. Archaeology tells us this. Elite Viking burials contain women sacrificed to accompany the dead. Foreign women, high-status women, killed not for crime but for symbolism. They were valuable because they could be destroyed. That was the logic. That was the system. Matilda survived by navigating it, by adapting, by becoming useful. Her story survived because it was rare. Most did not. Remember that. Remember what Vikings really did to captured queens. Not legends, not television versions, but real women, standing in burning halls, led to ships, facing choices between different kinds of destruction, and sometimes rarely surviving anyway. Time did not heal Matilda. It reshaped her. Years inside the Norse world stripped away the woman she had been, layer by layer. The queen who once ruled a stone hall now lived in timber houses smelling of smoke, blood, and resin. Her days followed the rhythm of rituals, seasons, and sacrifice. As a Velva, she was no longer owned in the way slaves were owned. She was feared, consulted, watched. Men sought her words before raids. Women watched her hands during ceremonies. Children were warned not to stare at her eyes for too long. She spoke less of the past. Not because she had forgotten, but because memory weakened focus. And focus was survival. At night, she still dreamed of firelit corridors and her children's voices calling from rooms she could never reach. She learned the truth slowly. Her daughters had been sold south. Her sons killed during the sack. No messenger delivered this news. It arrived in fragments, whispered by traitors, confirmed by silence. Grief was not permitted. Velvas were vessels. Pain was considered power if controlled. So Matilda learned control. She learned which truths to reveal and which to bury, which gods frightened men the most, which omens carried weight. Her captors never realized what she truly became. Not their servant, their interpreter. She translated fear into meaning, meaning into obedience, and in doing so she lived. But survival came with a cost. Every winter she watched new captives arrive, women with the same empty stare she once carried. Some resisted, some begged, some broke immediately. Most did not last. She tried to help when she could. A warning, a delay, a redirection of attention. It was never enough. The system did not care about mercy, only function. And then, one winter, something changed. The winter the Christians came north, the old balance shattered. Missionaries arrived with traders, men who spoke of one God, one soul, one salvation. At first they were mocked, then tolerated, then quietly feared, because where they settled, old rituals faded. Sacrifices stopped. Velvas lost influence. Matilda felt it immediately. Men stopped asking for visions. Chiefs stopped bringing gifts. The old gods demanded less or were being ignored. And with that shift came danger. A Velva without purpose was a liability. She was no longer sacred. She was foreign, disposable. Rumors spread that the old gods were angry, that failures in battle were her fault, that drought followed her presence. She understood the pattern. Scapegoats always come last. When the decision was made, it was quiet. No assembly,
No ritual.
just an order. She was to be given to a trader heading east, old, weakened, no longer useful. She was no longer worth preserving. On the morning she was led to the docks, she felt nothing. Not fear, not hope, only exhaustion. As the ship pulled away, she looked back once. Not at the land, but at the sea. The same sea that had carried her away from her kingdom decades earlier. She did not pray. She did not curse. She had learned the final rule of survival. History does not save women like her. It erases them, unless someone remembers. Matilda died somewhere between worlds. Not a queen, not a slave, not a legend. Just a woman who endured what systems demanded. And that endurance is the part the stories leave out. Because it is quieter than heroism, and far more uncomfortable.